what I have learned in the last couple of weeks is that there's like a Christian movement within transhumanism. Have you guys seen this stuff?
Yeah.
So transhumanism, and I'm not going to get this quite right, but it's basically that human beings can either significantly prolong life or even make it unending through technology. And Peter Thiel and some of his group basically are arguing from a Christian point of view that maybe this is how God fulfills the promise of eternal life, is through the technology that they are building in Silicon Valley, and that they're participating with God in the redemption of human life by creating these technologies. And I mean, Russell's piece is worth going through in greater depth, but I want to get your guys' take on this. You guys are both more educated and thoughtful than I am. How would you respond to the Christian transhumanism movement?
Well, one of the things that you recount all over the Bible is God basically checking humanity. Like, where were you when I created the foundations of the world? And so, like, there's so many examples in the Bible where we try to engineer God's fulfillment of his promises, and it's always failed. What we can do is recognize our limitations and bear witness to the coming kingdom. It's never our job to establish the kingdom. So I think at the core of it is simply human hubris that we can accomplish the ways of God on our own. It's actually what was in the Garden of Eden. You will be like God. And so the human attempt to fulfill that which God himself said he would do as cooperators is the biggest consistent folly in human history.
Caitlin, I want you to respond to that too, but how far is too far then? So what I mean by that, are you familiar with the old Greek conundrum, the ship of Theseus?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Okay, so it's this argument. You have a. Are we
going to go to a second argument off to the?
You have a ship, this ship of Theseus, and it's on a long journey, and some of the
you keep replacing
one piece of the ship after another on the journey, and by the end of the journey, the entire ship has been replaced.
Is it still the ship?
Is it still the same ship? So, I mean, we have seen massive improvements in science and technology and medicine to the point where we can, grow tissue and replace organs. And so their argument is essentially, well, why can't we just continue to do that to the point where we so improve the human body that it can live for 200 years or 300 years, or through genetic engineering, we don't even have these diseases anymore. Like, at what point do you cross the line and go, no, I'm sorry, but you are now beyond proper ethics and trying to fulfill eternal life in a way that is inconsistent with Christian theology?
One line I would say is, when you try to create Christian eschatology on your own volition is when you've crossed the line. Like, I would put that part at the line. Where we move back from there, I'm up for debate, right? But I would just say the attempt to create eternal life by uploading your brain into the cloud, my hot take is past the line.
Okay, so
we'll let Caitlin.
Hard agree on that one.
That's not hard to disagree with, but there's a lot of attempts to prolong life.
Yes.
And there's been this debate throughout history. Some people say even any modern medicine is a way of not trusting God, right? Sorry, Kate, go ahead.
I don't think it's about trusting God. I mean, I totally agree with Esau's point about just the hubris of thinking that we can engineer something that only God can create. But I keep reading about this stuff and thinking, I mean, along the lines of what Russell Moore said, it's a question of theological anthropology. Like, do we know what humans are? And if we believe, and the early church hammered this out. Like, we decided it was heresy to say that Jesus was not fully human because that was somehow in contrast to him being fully divine. And in the pursuit of making those arguments, we made lots of really important arguments that have continued for all of human history about what makes humans human, and in distinction from what makes a fallen human. So there are things that we could be tempted to think are a result of the fall, that a Christian version of transhumanism would say, well, we're overcoming that. That's a result of the fall. It would be faithful to God to resist things that the fall has put upon us. Mm-hmm. But we struggle sometimes to know what's a result of the fall and what is just human creatureliness. And some of the Christian transhumanists, including some of the academic versions, this is not just an internet thing. There are people who really write seriously about this.
Right.
I think they confuse human limitation, human finitude, and creatureliness as a result of the fall, as opposed to something good that we were created with. Death is a result of the fall, and yet, to Esau's point, we are not supposed to engineer a response to that Christ is not creating. Actually, we're supposed to be waiting for God to come and redeem and restore all things. but just human limitation, human finitude. We were made as creatures. Like Esau said, the sin at the beginning was trying to be like God to overcome that finitude. That is a good difference between us and God. This is how we were created. So that doesn't answer the question of where is the line, but I do think a different question to ask with any particular technology. I saw someone online say, well, we're not anti-science. Like, we want there to be medicines that treat people, and we want there to be surgeries, and we do. But there are lots of surgeries and medicines that we would still ask, like, is it right to prolong someone's life with the quality that they would have, or with the technology that would require certain compromises? But the question I think we need to ask is this technology, is this medicine trying to push back against some results of the fall? Cancer cells, I think, are results of the fall, or the way that we fall and harm ourselves and need our bones reset, results of the fall. Is it trying to resist those ways that the fall harms us, or is it trying to create humans into something other than they were supposed to be, from creatures into something that's not a creature?
Can I jump in with a big theological issue here? I think the problem is also human sin. And so if you just extend everybody's life eternally, you're extending the broken version of them. Unless you're going to say, I'm going to affect the moral transformation of the person into their eternal life. And you also have the people who can currently affect, let's assume that this stuff works, are the wealthiest. So what you're going to do is you're going to make permanent an inequality of people who can pay to extend their lives, and their greed and their sinfulness and their faultiness is going to continue more and more. You're going to create a permanent underclass. And so this utopia that we're talking about does not take seriously the fact that the issue isn't simply the fact that we die. The issue is the fact that we sin.
Right.
And in some places, though, it is good that sinful people die. And so you don't want people who are sinful with power to be able to extend their reign of evil. One of the things that gives me hope is like, this wicked person eventually has to meet their maker. And so to extend their evil for 100 or 200 years, to me, is a great tragedy that is not taken seriously in some of this conversation.
There's good theology that's been written out there about the fall in Genesis 3, arguing that the reason why the man and woman had to die is because God didn't want them to live forever in their sinful state. So in that case, death is sort of a mercy, because it limits the amount of evil that people can do. It is Shark Week on the Discovery Channel.
Okay.
And the reason I'm bringing this up,
that's a left turn.
I know.
Right? Yeah.
This is why it comes to mind. Is like, I was watching it last night, part of my great weekend, and there's like people missing limbs all over the place.
Yeah.
Like sharks just taking legs and arms and all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
Right? And none of us would argue that getting an artificial limb is in any way sinful.
No.
Right? It's a way of trying to mitigate against negative effects of a fallen world. Some of the transhumanist stuff that I've read online is essentially arguing the same thing, that our brain, the organ of our brain, is finite and will eventually deteriorate and decay and will die. So why not keep the mind of a person alive by transforming their brain with an artificial organ, essentially? What's wrong with that?
One of those is restoring capacity that was intended. Another is extending capacity beyond what humans have had. And I do think that doesn't answer every question, but I think the question of, we often reason this way when it comes to ethical questions about humans. We often say things like, well, what would, under normal conditions, we have enough data to kind of say what normal human capacities do they have? Could we try and seek to restore? That doesn't mean there's no ethical questions about that. We spent episodes a while ago talking about fertility treatments. That's trying to restore a capacity that is intended for humans to have, and yet there could be ethical or non-ethical ways of doing it. But when I think about the transhumanism question, my primary concern is we are trying to make humans supposedly more than we were supposed to be. And to Esau's point, it's verging on a godlike capacity, but also there's something just wrong about not properly valuing the fact that we were made as creatures, and that is a good thing. Hey everyone, if you liked this video, like and subscribe so that you can see more videos and other people can find more thoughtful Christian content.